All right, now we'll be back from the break. Let's get going again with Business Today. Now, we look at a memorandum of understanding between Uganda and the nation of Israel. The Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs, main office in Buea, that is Kampala, Uganda and the government of Israel have signed a memorandum of understanding on defense cooperation. The deal extends and deepens the two nations' long-standing historical partnerships in the fields of military, security and welfare. Let's have more of this report.
Mrs. Rosette Biengoma, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Defense and Veterans Affairs, signed on behalf of the government of Uganda, and Mr. Asaf Deville on behalf of Israel Defense Force. By doing this, the two nations hope to improve on their security cooperation.
The Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs appreciates all the support the government of Israel has extended to the government of Uganda from the time the relationship of our two countries were normalizing. In the defense and the security sector, we have achieved a lot together in the last almost 3 decades.
Biengoma commended the Israel government for backing Uganda's plan for social and economic reform and said that Israel has been crucial in enhancing Uganda's air defense capabilities. She praised Israel for helping the Uganda People's Defense Force, UPDF, training, providing cutting-edge gear, and providing opportunities for technological transfer so they could deal with the new threats facing the world, including terrorism, cybercrime, the surging youth population, and environmental problems, among others.
Israel has helped us to strengthen our different branches of the military, but more especially in the Air Force and air defense. Your invaluable expertise and support have to a great extent made our airspace safer, and for this we are very grateful. Apart from the support to Air Force and air defense, our infantry units have also benefited from your decades-long experience, both in training, supply of equipment, and technological transfer.
Delegates from CBAT pledged to uphold the long-standing tradition of collaboration in defense and security. The Israel government and the UPDF have traditionally worked together on projects involving training, gathering intelligence, managing airspace, and guarding borders, among others.
A unique, long-lasting relationship with the Republic of Uganda, which is based on economic, cultural and defense interests. It's a great opportunity for us again to come here and to put our relationship into a frame by this MOU, which took us a bit of time, but that's behind us and we are looking forward. We came here to share with you a seminar related to defense, to security, to intelligence, to border protection, and we came here with 13 of our best technologies, industries, and companies to present your teams and forces, the opportunities and the abilities for Israel and for Uganda.
A stable environment favors business, and with this MOU, Uganda is likely to strengthen its relation with Israel from security to trade. Desire Nambiru, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now let's talk matters e-learning. With the help of MasterCard and Makerere University, a platform for online learning has been launched that will give students in tertiary institutions access to education. Online learning, electronic learning, and knowledge acquisition that occurs through electronic technology and media are all related concepts in the field of e-learning. Bronia Katuseme brings you the report.
The COVID-19 pandemic outbreak caused by major disruptions in educational systems around the world, prompting students and some schools to switch to virtual learning to slow the spread of the disease. The pandemic led to a significant movement in schools toward digital learning environments. Education experts at Makerere University have started the MasterCard Scholars e-learning initiative, which will cost over $2 million and last for 14 months.
Today we are launching a project called the MasterCard Foundation Scholars e-learning initiative. This project is a $2 million project for 14 months. It is supposed to help us in creating the resources that are needed for teaching the kind of learners who are not with us here, learners who can learn from anywhere. So we have now started work. We are starting to work, and in the next 14 months, you'll be coming back here to see the products that we will have been able to create that can enable our learners to be able to study using e-learning.
We speak now, the world is going e-learning, and Uganda cannot be left behind. So I would like to congratulate Makerere on winning this grant, because it will go a long way in enabling Makerere to build, to strengthen, because there is already capacity, to strengthen the capacity for e-learning, but also support other institutions in the country to do the same.
Makerere University is a very big opportunity and a very big asset that we are going to get 5 smart classrooms which can be used for lecturers to either in real time conduct classes, or they can go there and record their lessons and then distribute them through the internet or through CDs where they may not be able to reach the internet. So yes, it's a very big asset for Makerere University.
Of us physically present and those following online,
the e-learning initiative will simplify studies as well as boost some businesses. This is because it will increase data consumption and also the uptake of computers and other electronic devices, because these studies will be held online. Bronia Katsime, Business Today, Smart 24 TV, driving business.
All right, now speaking electronic learning, we head into a feature report regarding digitization of the economy. When you look at most of the world economies, stronger economies are all driving their economies back to the internet and majorly driving it into the digital era. The digital era has shaped almost everything in regards to innovation. And so does the Ugandan government intend to make sure that this does happen. Well, you look at what the Ministry of ICT wants to bring in schools, it all drives to one thing: digitization of the economy, and looking at how best scaling up this sector will help the Ugandans. This and more in this report.
Uganda is one of the many African countries that are choking on inflation. But this country has been steadily and silently suffering from what we call hyperinflation. Big currency denominations, bigger notes in the supply chain. For some time, if you look back at around the period of 1990, right into early 2000s, and then right into where we are, 2022. Bigger denominations have been in circulation for some time. You could talk about the 10,000 shillings, 20,000 shillings, 50,000 shillings, among others. But what does this mean if a country is choking on hyperinflation and currently dealing with an issue called inflation, struggling with the spillover effects of international contestations? Let's get to it to understand what exactly the position of this country is when you talk about the business sectors and then the people that rely on trade and businesses in general. I'm Ivan Tivenkan. Contrary to nations with stable currencies such as Kenya, South Africa, Kuwait, and the UK, among others, Uganda's shilling has declined over time. helped by the country's transition from small bills and denominations to big, fat notes that facilitate cash transactions. But how we got here, we'll have to wait for another day's discussion.
Ugandans are poorer, so there are not many people who need the 50,000. Let me destroy a 50,000 and replace it with 50 of the 1,000 not. Because we want to support the people at the bottom of the pyramid who need change. I've seen taxis stop because we are waiting for change of 300 shillings. You can't find it. Somebody needs his 300. It means a lot to them.
The Bank of Uganda on 12th August raised the benchmark interest rate to 9% from 7.5 and 8.5 the month prior. Keep in mind that the central bank rate is reviewed once every 2 months, therefore twice every 4 months. But this wasn't the case.
Going forward, the MPC considers that the monetary policy stance will have to be tightened even further if inflationary pressures persist to ensure that inflation reverts to its medium-term target of 5%.
So all these are efforts that once the central bank looks at, they signal to the commercial banks that, hey, this is the status of the economy. As such, we need to control the money supply, because that's just controlling money supply, you know. So once they signal and then raise it 3 times in a row in a very, very short period, of course, that's alarming. It's bound to be alarming. This simply means that whenever they raise it, they're telling the commercial banks that, hey, this is the situation in the economy, raise your rates as well, let's curb the inflation.
2021, the month of June, their monetary policy report, it said they were doing something called monetary financing. In other words, Bank of Uganda is supposed to make, government is supposed to pay some kind of loan debt at a certain rate, or they're supposed to pay some money. Now, Bank of Uganda makes for that difference. In case government does not make the difference, Bank of Uganda literally prints money and adds that difference and pays off that debt. So, if they were doing monetary financing, and maybe it could have caused it could have been, because they said themselves in that report that it has associated risks of macroeconomic risks, which include our inflation.
Adam Posen at the Peterson Institute for International Economics recently said that the time for inflation targeting may have passed due to the over-reliance on a monetary policy that targets inflation. So how far can central banks go on increasing the policy interest rate?
I don't think this would be the perfect time to increase the CBR, because what we're experiencing is a low aggregate demand within the economy. So at this time, I wouldn't think that the Bank of Uganda would be fit to put this into perspective that you increase the borrowing rate, because when the Bank of Uganda increases, the commercial banks also increase, and yet this is where most of our members access funds.
Whenever the CBR rate goes up, it's a signal to commercial banks to raise their lending rates as well. And they are very, very quick at raising the rates. The sad bit is that when it signals to lower these rates by reducing the CBR, let's say from 9, let's say if they go to maybe like 7 right now, if a central bank has been charging about 22%, it will be very, 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 very minimal. You know, to maybe go to 21.9%, you know, yet the central bank rate has skipped by maybe, let's say, 30 percentage points, you know. So, of course, they stand to celebrate. A number of them really raise them expeditiously high.
Bank of Uganda is using a wrong remedy, and we're going to suffer the full brunt of their measures.
A portion of the solution to the inflation problem is to control the amount of money in circulation. With less demand for goods and services, commodity prices would be forced to fall. But who are the individuals in possession of the large sums of cash that are allegedly flooding the market? There are many people, businesses and people that I can't expose, but I'm certain are gone.
The loan-to-value ratio, the commercial banks normally have that thing called loan-to-value. Like sometimes Bank of Ghana told them to increase their lending against value. They may not lend exactly to the value of your asset you have pledged as collateral, but they normally lend something. There's a percentage, the loan-to-value ratio. Bank of Ghana told them to increase, and banks are like, no, we cannot. So the worst-case scenario if things remain as they are, is of course you're going to have very many foreclosures, you're going to have very many, of course lawyers will be all over in business trying to do recoveries.
Whoever drowns first if the headline inflation, which measures the change in the value of all goods and services, when it rises to 7.4% on average this year from the July rate of 6.8%, is yet to be known.
With fewer dollars in the economy, we would have our shilling depreciate. And as we've discussed, the depreciation of the shilling will translate into inflation. So it's something you want to keep watching to say, how should we respond? Now, one of the reasons the central bank in Uganda, Bank of Uganda, is trying to increase the rates is to counter that.
Bank of Uganda is not being entirely honest with people. And that is why they are firefighting with solutions. This inflation is not because of any Bank of Uganda policy. If anything, it is not entirely their fault. They could have contributed, but it's not entirely their fault. Most of the inflation we're having in this country is exported inflation from the big powers. But for them, what they have done, if you look at the European Central Bank, if you look at the Federal Reserve of the US, they've actually not rushed to cut rates yet, though there are considerations. The US, actually, for them, they are considering raising interest rates, raise their rate, their equivalent of our CBR. Okay. Why? Because for them it makes sense. For them, they are doing something called quantitative tightening. They are removing money from circulation.
With rising interest rates on loans, the degree to which investments at various levels are struggling to survive is dire as the crisis grows. There are those that are independent, and others simply combine hands, about 4 people. That's the current situation. But at times, you realize that those merging to import used to do it independently, bringing in about 3 containers.
Our currency is very weak, not only against the international currencies like the dollar and the pound, but also against the regional currencies. Regional currencies, we are talking about the Tanzania and Kenya shillings. Our shilling is still very weak. But when you also analyze our balance of trade deficit, it is really standing, let's say, at 60%.
You can sell more, get more tourists, but also import less. Then our shilling would get the value. But as we've said, those are not things you get in 1 month. Ugandans still want their cars, they still want their phones, they still want their tiles, they still want their everything, clothes that is imported. That puts a pressure on the dollar and keeps the shilling without adequate value.
The blame game around the current inflation is pretty fascinating, and because the severity of consequences varies depending on where you live.
European governments have been printing money since that global financial crisis of 2008. They pumped so much money into the system. At one point, the American government was pumping in about $86 billion per month. Now, for comparison purposes for our viewers, the Ugandan economy is about $43 billion, the entire economy. So for America to pump in 86 per month, which is twice the Ugandan economy, every month, consistently for months and years, you're putting so much money into the system. And that causes inflation.
We had trouble connecting with financial institutions and couldn't have an in-depth discussion regarding their viewpoint. But it's intriguing, though, how such a criteria may be met given the updated paid-up capital requirements for commercial banks and other financial institutions.
They are proposing to have the 25 billion of commercial banks, that's tier 1 institutions they license, to about 50 or 60 something billion. Why would you do that at such a time? Now the risk that is going to bring, and so the trend start beginning to show, is that you're going to have very many mergers. You're going to have a concentration of the financial sector in a few hands.
It would be reasonable to implement a contractionary fiscal policy, one that reduces government expenditure on infrastructure, services, among other things, and increasing tax revenue in return to combat inflation. It's, however, debatable how successful this may be in a sinking economy.
All the 6 cement factories in Uganda, Hima Cement, Kampala Cement, Toro Cement, Simba Cement, Metro, they have stock full in the store. Why? Because government has not released the development component of the budget for this financial year. Government has also not paid domestic debt of the road contractors, those building hospitals, those building schools, those building waterworks. and therefore there is serious squeeze of liquidity among contractors. So we urge government immediately in the next release to release money for the development component to stimulate growth.
According to the Bank of Uganda, this country is believed to have grown by 4.6% when you look at the just concluded financial year 2021-2022, thanks to private investment. However, the private sector and the people in the business sector generally are choking on inflation with a fear of insolvency, bankruptcy, among other issues that regard the transparency and progress of businesses. So what would someone think of as the best solution? Would you think of a well-managed monetary policy? Let's talk about the fiscal policy, government expenditure, and then relative taxation. The monetary policy itself. How equitable could it be? How fair could it be? That's something you could think about. I'm Ivan Tivenkana, and this is Smart 24 TV.
All right, my apologies first for the preamble leading to that particular report, as it was basically looking at the interest rates and looking at entirely the business community, not being particular in regards to digitization of the economy. Thank you very much for sticking around with us tonight. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Wiyinza and Akauchi on Sign Language. We've been coming to you live from Plot 42, Nile Avenue. Have a blessed night. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.